Today is Wednesday. Before we go into our writing today, what I would like to do is to give you some feedback from your class teachers. Just a few things that I think will just help you keep on track to make sure that your newspaper report is as it should be. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is your tense. Now, because this is a newspaper report, it's reporting on something that has already happened, it should be mostly in the past tense because, as I say here, it's reporting on something that has already happened. Now, the last paragraph, you can switch to present tense, but I'll talk more about that when we're actually writing the last paragraph. So most of it, paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4, should all be in past tense, exactly as they are on the waggle. Now, what I also want to remind you about is that I want you to refer back to your research. You did your research and you did a very good job of it because I saw a lot of all the classes that were sent in. And you put them under specific headings, and those headings were the headings that would give you the information for each paragraph. So refer back to it because you've done all the hard work with the research. If you notice, when I'm modelling my paragraphs, I always have in front of me the bit of research, the section of the research that is relevant to that paragraph. So you do the same. And then finally, blue group, I just want to remind you, let me pull this up so you can see this a little bit. Remember, your newspaper report should be biased. You should be showing me whether you approve or disapprove of Valerie Rossov's extreme sport. And that should be threaded right the way through paragraphs 1, paragraph 2, and paragraph 3, as well as 4 and 5, of course. So if you feel as though you haven't shown me that, then please go back and edit to show that. Because when I'm reading it, blue group, I will be looking for bias. Okay, so let's move on now to today's lesson. So as you know, today is Wednesday. It's the 3rd of March. We're on lesson 8 and we're writing and then publishing our newspaper report. So today we're going to be writing and editing your 4th paragraph. So you're going to need your paper, pencils, your research, your particular waggle if you've got one, and your checklist from yesterday. So in this particular paragraph, I want you to use something called reported speech, often referred to as well as indirect speech. Now, again, this is something that you have done lower down the school, but don't worry if you think, oh, I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm going to go over and recap it for you so that you and give you an example so that you can see how it should be used. So I've done a structure strip for you again for the 4th paragraph, still in past tense. This paragraph's all about the jump, where he stood, what he was wearing, how it helped him glide. And this would be a good paragraph also to get an expanded noun phrase in. But reported speech is the main focus of this paragraph. So let's have a look at what reported speech is. So reported speech is when we do not use the exact words of the speaker. Instead, we report what was said after it's been said. So we sometimes need, because of that, we sometimes need to change the pronouns and verb tenses, and we don't use inverted commas at all. So here we have Valerie again. So this is what he said. No one has ever done this jump before. Probably no one else will dare to do it again. That's why I wanted to do it. This is direct speech. We are writing reported or indirect speech. So this is how it's changed. You're just going to retell what he said here. But by retelling it, you have to change it a little bit. So, Valerie exclaimed that no one had ever done the jump before, and probably no one else would dare to do it again. That was why he wanted to do it. So again, there's key words in there that I've underlined that are going to help you, which tells you that you're reporting on something that has been said. And that then is your past tense that comes through. Now, the key word in all of this with reported speech that I use all the time because it helps lead into the reported speech is that. So Valerie exclaimed that. Fred whispered that. Susan shouted that. And then you retell what they'd said. So let's have a look in more detail. Okay, so we've got the quote at the front here, and I'm retelling it, I'm reporting it back. On landing, Valerie exclaimed that no one had ever done the jump before, and probably no one else would dare to do it again. That was why he wanted to do it. So, reported speech, no inverted commas at all. No speech marks used. Okay. The actual words of the speaker are often changed. The spoken words need to be in the correct tense. Don't know why I put a hashtag there. Extra words may be needed to add, and pronouns may need to be changed, e.g., I to he, because you're reporting back on what he said. He's not saying it anymore. And then there's no reporting clauses within reported speech. However, an adverb or prepositional phrase to explain more about how, where, or when the speech was said can be added if needed. So here, on landing, that's a prepositional phrase. I'm saying when he said it. And that just puts it into perspective for the reader so that he understands that when Valerie said this. Also, another way of saying this was after the jump. He told our reporter that no one had ever, and then go on to say what he said. Again, that's a prepositional phrase. If you wanted to use an adverb, you could just describe how he said it. So you could say, excitedly, Valerie exclaimed that no one had ever done the jump before. So you're showing that Valerie's excited because he's done the jump. So you could use an adverb to do that. Okay, if you're not, you still think you need to spend a bit more time on this, stop the video, go back, start it from where I start talking about reported speech and listen to this section again until you feel secure in it. When you're ready, move on to the next part of the lesson. Okay, so there's my structure strip that I'm going to use. How can my research all about the jump help me? So I'm looking at this. And I'm going to think about what I can use. So when speaking earlier, Rossoff confirmed that, and I'm going to talk about the team and how important the team was him. So I could say, when speaking earlier, Rossoff confirmed that without the support of his team, the jump would not have been possible. Okay, so that's the reported speech. That's how I'm using that to help me. Now, what I've also done for you is I put down here some reported speech for you, some ways of actually introducing the actual speech, the reported speech. Some of them will be appropriate, some of them won't be appropriate, or you can use your own. I don't think when speaking earlier was one that's on here. Nope. So you could possibly use mine. Okay, so in this paragraph, you are going to use reported speech. That's what I expect from you in this paragraph. Now let's have a look. You've got an example of the waggle here. Blue group, remember you're putting bias right the way through yours. Yellow and green, you're writing an impartial one. You're not putting any opinions, you're just reporting on what happened. So let's have a look and see how I'm going to have another go at writing this because it's a while since I did this waggle. I did it last week. So I'm going to have my character, Valerie, right at the peak, right ready to do his jump. So I'm going to have him standing at the summit of Mount Cho Oyu. And I'm not going to say, oh, I'm underlining it. I can all imagine you at home now saying, you've got underline on, Mrs. Small, take it off. Okay, standing at the summit of Mount Cho Oyu. And I'm not going to say Valerie again because I've said that a lot throughout this report. And I've also referred to him as Rossoff. So I'm going to call him the extreme base jumper. So this extreme base jumper composed himself. Every part of the videos that I've seen on our research, he doesn't just stand up and then jump off. He takes a moment to settle himself down, compose himself, get himself ready for the jump. So I'm describing that. So this extreme base jumper composed himself. And then once he's composed himself, he then leapt into the air. Then the air. Full stop. And I'm going to talk about what they had to do to get to that point. So to get to this point, Rosoff and his team had to take, no, that's not going to work for me, had taken, past tense, 4 days to travel from the base, I'll pick up all my errors at the end, base camp to the top of the mountain. He later reported that he had initially struggled with the altitude and was concerned that he may not even make it to the top. Okay, let me just pick up some of those errors because they're annoying me, so they'll annoy you. Okay, so take that. Standing at the summit of Mount Choi Oyu, this extreme base jumper composed himself, then leapt into the air. To get to this point, Rosoff and his team had taken 4 days to travel from the base camp to the top of the mountain. So I've talked about that. He later reported, so I'm doing here, I'm sure you've identified straight away that I've used reported speech. He later reported that he had initially struggled with the altitude and was concerned that he may not even make it to the top. However, and I'm going to refer back to this making it to the top so that I've got that cohesion from sentence to sentence. However, he overcame this and, I could use a semicolon here, I suppose. Overcame this and with the support of his team and a large amount of courage, he jumped into history. Jumped into history by breaking the world record for jumping. And I'm explaining what the world record is, jumping off the highest peak. Okay. Let's go back and correct my errors. See how important it is to keep going back and making sure that you pick up all the errors. It makes it so much easier than going right back and doing it at the very end of your writing. So, however, he overcame this with the support of his team and a large amount of courage. He jumped into history by breaking the world record. Okay, I'm going to try and get another piece of reported speech in here. So I'm going to have a team member. I don't know what his team was called. I don't think it said in the research. So I'm going to use poetic license here and I'm just going to introduce someone. Jean Simmons, a team member, informed us later that she had real concerns for Valerie. And I've used his Christian name there because if someone's showing real concerns, I want it to seem quite personal. So Jean Simmons, a team member, informed us later that she had real concerns for Valerie at one point. But was relieved, notes I before E, except after C, relieved and proud when he landed safely on the ground. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reread this and do a little bit more editing. What I would like you to do now is to write your own fourth paragraph. Now, you've got the waggle here, which can help you. You've got my start of another piece of writing. You've got your research. You've got your structure strip. And you have got your help sheet for your reported speech. So please take the time, write your fourth paragraph. So pause the video now, and then when you're ready, restart it. Okay, year 6. Right, so presumably now you have written your fourth paragraph. and you have been doing editing 1 along the way. If you haven't been doing editing 1 along the way, then please go back and do editing 1 now, and then move on to editing 2. Does it make sense? Can you add something to improve it? Can you take away something to improve it? Have you put too much? Have you waffled too much? Can you replace a word? Can you up-level the word that you've got from love to passion? And then finally, read it out loud. Blue group, remember that bias that I'm expecting from you right the way through. I kept quiet about bias on Monday and Tuesday, waiting to see what you'd done. Now I'm reminding you to put it in. And when you have done all that and you've edited your work, all groups, you have finished today's lesson. So please send your work in tonight to your class teacher, and I will speak to you tomorrow.